to our next speaker. Kiana is from Ficino School in Auckland, and despite her current minor disability, she's determined she's going to join us today. Kiana is in Year 8 of Ficino School in Auckland. She enjoys science and has a particular interest in the fields of genetics and neurology. Her enjoyment and curiosity for these subjects has led to her to investigate them, particularly in her spare time, and in fact, right since a very early age, she's done this. And that curiosity led to her choice of topic for today. Please welcome Kiana.
Hello, my name is Kiana, and I'm talking about GMOs today. Genetically modified organisms, also known as GMOs, are living things, basically anything that moves, eats, breathes, grows, etc., that have undergone a process to have some of their genetic code changed by direct intervention, as in it wouldn't happen naturally by the process of natural selection, as founded by Charles Darwin. There are two types: cisgenic, in which the change could have happened naturally, but has been forced. For example, the spotted moth turned a different colour naturally in the 1800s in response to London's pollution. And then there's transgenic, organisms that could not have been changed naturally, but were. For example, having glow-in-the-dark hamsters for no reason at all. Kids Right to Know, a site founded by Rachel Parent, a teenage GM activist who has gained quite the following, says that 90% of all foods in the supermarket in GM-OK countries have been basically addled by GMOs in some way. For example, the seeds of the wheat used were weed kill resistant or made their own pesticide. Monsanto should be held as a hero because they have developed technologies that help underdeveloped countries increase productivity by 5 to 10 times, says Kevin O'Leary, a well-known figure in the GMO picture. He also said, later in the same interview, that GMO protesters were just stupid and then told them to stop eating as a way to get rid of them. So he wasn't a very nice guy. In response to this, Rachel Parent, 14 at the time, went on a show and exposed him for being a greedy narcissist. Cotton, corn, and soy are the three most common things to grow as GMOs, and they're everywhere. These corporations are, however, risking the lives of a lot of people and making a profit out of it. Billions of dollars are going to companies like Monsanto, who are the disputable giant on the genetic modification front. Less developed countries are being paid to die, well, more quickly than ourselves, and we're the lucky ones. Let me sort of explain. Cotton workers in places like the Philippines that grow GM cotton are getting really badly sick. Most of them don't have money for doctors, and the really funny thing is, most of them, once on leave, get better really quickly. The people who are working in these companies are doing tests, but the people who stand to gain the most are coming up the results, firing the researchers or getting them sent to prison or paying them off so they can dominate the whole world with their poison. Ladies and gentlemen, this is called corporate greed. Have you ever considered the root cause of obesity and heart disease in America? Let me tell you right now that almost all their food has been genetically modified in some way. Now you might say it's fats or oils, and I couldn't really prove you wrong there, but look at the evidence. Other countries have decided less ethical. They also have a lower obesity rate, and they do put labeling on their products, which is all some GM activists want, as well as more testing. GM activists want consumers to be able to make informed decisions about what they eat, and not have to pay a fortune for the stuff that may or may not be GMO-free in the first place. It's still claimed to be organic. The FDA, Food and Drug Agency, are basically Monsanto's pockets. They're scratching each other's backs and getting away with poisoning eventually poisoning the entire human race. Also, GMOs are being tested. Why are we testing them on us? Shouldn't there be a slow and specific study group that shows that these new things being presented are entirely safe for the human race? A further point is, if GMOs are helping us, then why are we getting sicker? Look at our disease rates. We have all this medicine, all these great minds, and all these resources, and we're just killing ourselves. An international research group did tests on salmon, rats, and mice. The GM and non-GM foods were fed over a period of 90 days, and a whole bunch of subtle changes were made in the bodies of the GM-fed animals. It affected the immune system, which, if applied to humans, is valid as an explanation for more disease. Did you know that every day, your immune system eliminates at least one cell that, if left undestroyed, would have been cancerous? And it also affected things like the liver, the kidneys, and the lungs. In over 64 countries, GMOs are labelled, restricted, or banned, including Australia and New Zealand. But that is actually changing due to these corporations putting pressure on us to accept their products more and use them more. In Roundup Ready, Monsanto's weed killer, which, if you use Monsanto's weed killer resistant seeds, is not actually able to destroy them. The main thing in it is glyphosate, which, if ingested, eliminates gut bacteria, which Monsanto claims is beneficial, but we actually need this gut bacteria in order to digest stuff properly. And in some plants, yes, spraying plants and bugs with untreated, unsafe stuff is working, but we're the ones, in turn, forcing the plants and our ecosystem and killing them, and forcing them to evolve into new stuff we can't control. We're releasing more and more greenhouse gases from the soil microbes we sprayed. And these new superweeds can grow 7 to 8 centimetres a day and have stems 10 centimetres thick, which is breaking farmers' machines. And these new superbugs are becoming resistant to every pesticide known to man. We are making them evolve just by standing here. Stephanie Senna, a professor and researcher at MIT that has received a lot of controversy due to her anti-GMO campaigning, stating that the health of GM-raised children is worse than the health of non-GM-raised children, has done a lot of research, and some of her research shows a direct link between autism, other health issues, and GMOs. She believes that in order for us to keep our planet, we will have to stop using them entirely. She also does realize this is an extreme measure to take, but insists it's fundamental to our survival. I believe in slightly less extreme measures. This is still an amazing avenue of possibility. However, the greed of some humans are ruining the possible benefits for everybody. This could solve world hunger and take 2 giant leaps forward in the direction of world peace. I believe in more strictly controlled conditions of experimentation, less distribution, mandatory labeling, fair testing, the ability to scrap a project if need be, and no imposing it on anybody. We should be allowed to do and eat what we want. So how did I get into this? I came across a book a couple of years ago by the name of Genetic Roulette. I read it and reread it in following years. It exposes the dangers of genetically modified anythings, but I have since been unable to procure it for the use of this speech. From then on, I started following this topic of interest. So why should we be invested? I believe that we should be invested because this is our future. Thank you.
Well done, Kiana. All I can say is if you know that much at 12, just imagine what you could be with a PhD in another 10 years' time. That's a really amazing depth of understanding of what is a really quite complicated area, and I think you've brought some real clarity to that. Thank you. All right, our next speaker, also from Ficino School in Auckland, is 11 years of age and is year 7 at the school. Thomas here plays hockey, tennis, the cello, he skis, goes to scouts, reads both fiction and non-fiction in every spare minute, loves maths, the more challenging the better. Thomas also has a very keen interest in ancient civilizations and hopes eventually to travel to Italy, Greece and Egypt. And not surprisingly, with that level of interest, the topic of his speech today is the fall of the Roman Empire. Thomas.
Hello, my name is Thomas, and I will be talking to you about the fall of the Western Empire of Rome. Edward Gibbon wrote the definitive history of the fall between 1776 and 1788. It comprises 6 volumes, so clearly I do not have the time here to do his work justice. Therefore, I have chosen 3 causes to talk to you about. They are a less effective military, a greedy upper class, and economic troubles. There is no absolute date for the collapse, but for the purposes of this speech, we will accept the date of 476 AD as set down by Gibbon. This is when Odoacer disposed of the Roman Emperor Romulus, ending Roman control of the Western Empire. The Roman Empire did not fall because of any one factor, but a combination of many. Quoting Gibbon, "The decline of Rome was the natural and inevitable effect of a moderate greatness. Prosperity ripens the principle of decay, the cause of the destruction multiplied with the extent of conquest, and, as soon as time or accident had removed the artificial supports, the stupendous fabric yielded to the pressure of its own weight. The story of the ruin is simple and obvious, and instead of inquiring why the Roman Empire fell, we should rather be surprised that it has subsisted for so long. The first cause that I will address is a less effective military. Firstly, to see how it became less effective, you must understand what made it great in the first place. It was better trained than any other army at the time, better provisioned, and most importantly, more disciplined. It maintained a superior discipline through strict punishments, probably one of the more notorious of which was decimation. This is when the commanders would line up the troops and kill every 10th soldier. This is one of the stricter punishments, and part of its impact was that it was not always the troublemakers who were killed. The troublemakers would then feel ashamed, realizing their actions had led to the deaths of innocent comrades. As time progressed and the empire expanded, there were no longer enough troops coming from Rome to maintain the empire. The commanders were forced to take on auxiliary troops from the provinces they conquered and hire barbarian mercenaries. Near the end of the empire, generals were actually afraid to punish their troops, as they no longer had the same loyalty to Rome and would rebel. Sometimes when an emperor died, or even before, troops would declare their general emperor. This led to civil war and the general weakening of the legions. These led to the fact that they were no longer able to keep out the barbarians, which greatly contributed to the fall of the Roman Empire. Secondly, Rome's upper class became greedy and corrupt, overtaxing the population and causing dissent within the empire. Some people even sold themselves into slavery, while others broke away from the empire just to escape tax. The nobles and senators' first loyalty was themselves, not the empire. The gulf between the rich and the poor grew vast. The senators weren't actually caring for the people. The Senate was rife with corruption. Under Roman law, you were allowed to pay people to vote for you. By the careful manipulation of tax laws, senators were able to seize vast tracts of land from the farmers. This also had an effect on the military, as it could no longer get as many of the yeoman farmers, who had traditionally made up the core of the legions. My last point is that of economic troubles. These troubles only started to surface when the empire stopped expanding and could no longer gain revenue from its conquests. Poor management exacerbated the economic woes. The rich classes would literally pour gold overseas to get luxury items such as silk. In addition, this led to inflation, as the supposedly 100% silver denarius contained only 60% silver in the latter years of the empire. Some emperors would spend basically their entire treasury to lead a life of idle luxury, rather than pay their troops or increase their defences. Which leads me to the point of military overspending. With the coffers empty, the building of such important military structures as Hadrian's Wall was challenging. Rome was spending money that it did not have. The halting of expansion also caused a labour deficiency, as they no longer acquired slaves out of conquests. These three factors put together contributed to and sped the demise of the Roman Empire. In summary, the Roman Empire collapsed because of a contradiction. It needed to get bigger to continue to gain money and slaves to support the infrastructure of the empire, but it could not, as its military was already overstretched, as the barbarians proved in the sacking of Rome in 410 AD, and the already hard-to-govern empire would become impossible to rule. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. These problems stemmed in part from the corruption of the powerful. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. It was outstanding. I think probably in a current context, the Greeks should be learning from the Romans really at the moment, shouldn't they? Because it's all about history, as you pointed out. Thank you very much.